You're watching All to Play For, brought to you by Joe and Coral.
Welcome to All to Play For, brought to you by Joe and Coral with me, Adam Smith, and the legend Joe Cole. Joe, how you been, mate? Been a couple of weeks. What you been up to?
Just ducking and diving, mate. I moved to London, so I actually went playing out on my bike the other day.
Oh, did
I
you?
had nothing to do, dropped the kids off at their clubs. All my mates were at work, so I just got on my bike and just had a little drive around London. Not like none of that like proper stuff with the lycras. Like,
Right, you're not a lycra man.
No. I was ducking and diving in and out the parks, a few coffees there, read a paper there. I had a lovely day. Just reminded me, when I was a kid.
Brilliant. I'm going to introduce our guest, Joe, and I've got so much information, I have to read it off because this is quite incredible. Our guest today, listen to this, England women's all-time top goal scorer, 46 goals in 117 appearances. She's a legend at Arsenal, of course, where she scored, listen to this, mate, 125 goals in 144 games for Arsenal. That is
Messi and Ronaldo level.
It is, isn't it? Soccer icon in the United States, represented her country at 4 European Championships, 2 World Cups, London 2012 Olympics, of course. She's an MBE, 20 trophies for Arsenal ladies. It is, of course, Kelly Smith. Kelly, thank you for having us. Anything that I missed out from that?
I think you've nailed it all on that piece of paper.
There we go. Unbelievable record, isn't it?
That's some resume. And the biggest compliment I can play Kelly is when we work with all the girls at BT or in the media, and I always say, who's the best player? Kelly Smith. And they've all held her in such high esteem. And as a footballer, that's what you want. More than anything, you want your fellow professionals. And I've not met one of the women's footballers who I've worked with who hasn't said that Kelly's the best player they've played with. So that is for me, that's the biggest compliment you can pay as a footballer.
It's nice. And of course, you two know each other well because you were doing your badges together. So how was that experience, Kelly?
Yeah, we did a UEFA B licence, didn't we, on the grass. It was good because there were so many good former pros on that licence that there was so much knowledge and information being shared that I really learned a lot from it. And I got my B licence. Went on to do my A licence, but then obviously fell pregnant. So I backed off a little bit, raising children. But it was a good course to be involved with because of the amount of good players that were on it and learning the profession. Yeah. And then taking that knowledge away.
And I learned a lot. It was Faye, Kelly and Rachel Yankee were at the girls, and then there were some good players. But there was also lads, because I don't know how it works, is if you've got a professional contract, it was a PFA course, so you can get on the course. So there's a couple of boys, all good lads. There was a couple of boys there who had one professional contract, and he was an kind of electrician or a plumber. Wow. And he was there, and he was getting all their experience. And the way it's set up is you join in the session. So if someone's doing a session, so Rachel played, and she was on the left wing. And I said to this fella, "What position?" I said, "I'm a right back." So I've got, and he's a bit chubby. I'm sorry if you're listening. He's a bit overweight.
Chubby,
do you know? He's obviously ain't kicked the ball in 15 years. Yeah. And Rachel was absolutely skinning it.
Really?
It was like, and I thought he was turning beetroot. I think he didn't know what she was just. She was a winger, wasn't she? She was like
pacey.
She was carving him open, and he was like, he was blowing out of his backside.
I like the way you said that.
It was good fun. I mean, I enjoyed it, and I learned a lot. That's the first residential course I went on. Like we was there every day, but it was good.
Kelly, so is that something you want to get into then, coaching? You said you've had kids. Does that change your mindset a bit?
Yeah, it was. Obviously, when you playing, you give everything day in, day out. You focus, your energy, your main focus is performing in training and in games. And that's how I feel like you need to be as a coach. I couldn't believe when I did my coaching badges, the prep that goes into the sessions, the session planning, is how you go from the warm-up into the next bit, into the next bit. And we had to write it all down. I felt like I was a writer at the end of it.
Did you? Yeah.
It was so much that you had to fill out your book and you had to do it in their way. Yeah. But then obviously when you go out and you coach, you have to add your own style to it. So I did enjoy the B licence, but then I got pregnant, and my whole, obviously being pregnant coaching, it was hard because I was a bit out of breath. But then when I had my son Rocco, my whole focus changed. I wanted to get back into coaching, but then when I had him, it's like, well, I want to raise him now. I want to be at home with him. I didn't want to be travelling up and down the country, giving my weekends away, when you travel out of country 3 or 4 days that you're away. I didn't want to be away from him. I wanted to be at home raising him. I didn't want to pay a nanny to look after my children. So my focus come back a little bit. I started to do a little bit of radio and TV, and then I could pick and choose the hours that I could work. So right now, where I'm at in my life, I've got another 2-year-old little girl. So I've got a 4 and a 2-year-old. So they keep me on my toes at home, and I can pick and choose the work that I do. So I can't fully get myself into a manager or a coaching role because I'm not fully there. I'm not fully focused. I'm raising my 2 young kids at home. So it's not to say that I won't get into it when they maybe go to school and I've got more time on my hands, but I feel like you have to be in it like I was a player.
Fascinating to hear that. So many things that if you're not in it on the game, you sort of take for granted, I suppose, with being a professional player or manager or coach. I've got to ask you about Joe. What was he like as a student? Was he well behaved?
He was, yeah. And he's
You can tell the truth.
Joe looked more surprised that he went, what?
And it was great to share the training pitch with him, because he's a legend in his own right. You know, England international, proper Chelsea man. Yeah, and to play with him on the pitch and see him in his skill and his technique and his vision in live was absolutely brilliant for me. So yeah, he was you know. He was talking a few times out of when he shouldn't be. But it was great to be involved.
I like the love in the room, but legends from each other. There's a lot of respect going around the table. I like that.
No, it's admirable because it's a balance. When you've played like Kelly, like you went and lived in America. Like Kelly's journey is not like, I've always said this when I speak to the girls, and it's the men's path was when we was growing up is a beaten path. We knew what we was doing, but Kelly and the girls, Karen Carney, who's been on the pod, who I work with, I love working with Karen. They were trailblazers. Like they've developed. There was no. I think didn't you have to pay to when you paid to play when you was young? It's like it's completely different to what the young girls see now because of people like Kelly. So I know you've probably relayed the story so many times, but like how was that? Like what do you see in the game now? Would you have liked to have been starting now, or would you have liked to have had your journey?
It's a good question, because obviously my generation played during that time, like you said, where we were having to pay £60 a year, £70 a year to play the game for referees, for kit, for pitches. We were wearing men's kit, big baggy kit. It was not professional at all. We tried to be as professional as we could. But yeah, we struggled with that, but that's all we had at the time. There was no real professional league. Now you've come full circle. There's 20 odd years it's taken to get to this level. And now there is a full-time professional women's league in this country. And for me, it's the best league in the world at the minute, because of the sponsorship that's come on board, the TV deals that are coming now. All the top international players want to play in this league. So yeah, would I like to be 10, 15 years younger? You know, I maybe to be in this generation of players now, but I think I was put on this planet to help raise the profile of women's football, and I think I did an okay job at that.
I like that. It's a great answer. Let's talk about your career then, Kelly, because there's so much to dissect. Firstly, you went over to America at quite a young age, and you were quite strong in your words that you used there about the English game, saying that it was a bit of a joke at the time. So I suppose firstly, I just wanted to ask you how difficult that was going to America, because you must have been, 17, 18 when you went there?
Yeah, I was 17, and my goal and my ambition as a young kid, like it probably was for Joe, was to always be a professional footballer. But there was no professional elite level in England.
That must be so tough, though.
Yeah, it was. I got kicked off of 2 boys' teams when I was younger for being the best player, and because I was a girl, which really hurt, because all I wanted to do was play football, and I was always the best player, but because of my gender, it was the parents, not the parents of the team that I was playing with. It was the opposition parents hated the fact that I was a girl, like dribbling around all their sons and scoring, 5-6 goals a game. So yeah, I mean, when I got scouted by a US university to go out to the States, and for me, it wasn't professional, but I was training every day on a ball. You go to university from 9 till 1, and then you train with your team in the afternoon. And the reason why I left was because at Arsenal, we were only training 2 evenings a week. And two nights touching a ball is not where you want to be, and you're not developing. So for me to go put myself out of my comfort zone at the age of 17 and put myself in New Jersey at university, it was a big move for me, but something that I needed to do to develop my professional career.
I just want to ask you, because it must have been so tough as a young girl to make that move, but to have the determination to do that. Like, there've been a lot of girls that are just probably, you must have seen it, it was, there's no path there, I'll just go and do something else. But you must have been so determined, Kel, just to go and up sticks at that age and go across the side of the world to do it.
It was very daunting, but I had to do it to follow my dream, to follow my passion and my heart, to hopefully be a professional one day. And I knew women's football in America was bigger than what it was in England. There was no professional league yet. It happened when I was out there. I went out in '99,
Yeah.
and the women's game out there was booming because the US women's team just won the World Cup.
Yeah.
So it was alive. Everybody, they become household names: Brandy Chastain, Mia Hamm, Christine Lilly. So I was in and amongst that. And then once I graduated from university, the professional league started. So I was straight into it. So then I was like, wow, I put myself in this position, and now I'm a full-time professional. And I remember standing there, my first professional game, and the national anthem. Of the USA national anthem, and I just had tears rolling down my cheeks because it was the fireworks were going off. You know, like the big American, they like to go over the top. But I just had tears because this was my dream. You know, I'm professional now. I've kind of made it.
Wow. Was it? Were you quite homesick? Was it? I mean, aside from the challenges that you had within the women's game, obviously the challenges you might have had going to a different country that's far away, cultures, all of that kind of thing, and being away from friends and family, that must have been quite tough as well.
It was so difficult. So many times I was on the phone crying to my parents and want to come home because I was quite a shy, reserved character back then. Didn't really know, wasn't comfortable around people. And when I first got out there, I couldn't play because of something to do with my grades hadn't transferred over. So I couldn't really express myself on the football pitch and get to know people because I was shy. So I wasn't really going to go engage in conversations and that, and I couldn't play. And it was just, it took me a good 3 or 4 months just to settle in. But I could have, you know, jacked it in and said, come home. But my mum was like, let's speak next Sunday, let's speak. And then the time periods would get longer, and I'd becoming more comfortable in that environment.
I mean, what I like it's similar, but when I went to the national school at 14, that's only up in Telford, but my mum and dad were up. Like I'd ring up homesick, and I've had enough, and then they'd be in the car to come and get me, and then by the time they got to Watford Gap, I'd rung up.
It's always Watford Gap.
I'm all right now. I'm all right now. Like because it's tough for you. Like, I think people see the finished article and they don't see the journey. Like, you know, there's so many guys in the pub who could have made it but got an injury or discovered drink and whatever. But there's so many little hurdles you have to go over mentally to get to where you got to go, and that is like an extraordinary to go that far. I couldn't have gone there.
You couldn't have done that
age. No, I couldn't. I don't. You don't know. Look, needs must. If it was like. If Kelly would have seen that as the only route to the top, then maybe I could have done it. But like looking back now, as I was maturity-wise as a 17-year-old, that must have been tough.
Did you both find that then you played with players in your career that had incredible amount of talents, but actually the other things that come within the game, moving abroad or having to be away from friends and family, that couldn't deal with that, which is fair enough for whatever reason. But did you both find that there were some really talented individuals that never quite made it because of those reasons? Yeah,
100%. And when you're from inner London, kids who just didn't have the family structures to take them, and then you know, nothing's ever smooth sailing in any sport. So there's always bumps, and if you ain't got that something inside you, that fire to go through that, or you haven't got the support network around you, lose so many people and players to it, girls and boys. You know what I mean?
There's a few players that I played with that could have made it for England, but just didn't have that fire in the belly. Didn't want to push themselves that extra bit in fitness training to get to the next level. And they fell away. They had all the talent and skill in the world, but they just didn't have that grit, that determination, that resilience to push themselves to be better.
One of the things I wanted to ask you, Kelly, is your career is fascinating, that the clubs that you went to, you were at Arsenal, then back to Arsenal, then you went to America. So that time that you were playing in and amongst the American League and the English League, what were the sort of main differences and challenges that you faced?
The difference is probably in the English league. It was more skillful. The players were technically better.
Was that even when, like in your own words, you're saying the American league was it a better standard, or there was more money or focus in the game? The English league technically was still stronger, always stronger, was it?
I think the players were technically a little bit better, but in the US, it was all about mentality and never losing, putting that in. You know, we had to wear shin pads in training because the tackles were flying in. Wow. And the Americans hate to lose, and they still do now at the elite end in the national team level. But the game was a lot more physical. The players were more built because their emphasis and focus is really about strength and in the gym and being as big and as physical as possible. So it was a real physical league. But in terms of, there was a lot of turnovers, so you're up and back. So the play was okay, but I would have preferred to stay in England and be on that technical element.
And we've got to talk about the goal record, Joe. I mean, your goal record is ridiculous, isn't it? Absolutely ridiculous.
And Kelly, like, I would be right in saying, like, you didn't always, from what I'm watching you play, you wasn't always on the shoulder, like running, like you'd come into pockets and your goals were all like, it was like Messi. You could drive past players, and it wasn't like an out poacher, no, but like to score that amount of goals.
I mean, yeah.
The only other person in the men's league who's got that kind of record who isn't like a poacher on the shoulder is Messi. Like, his goal scoring is ridiculous because he's not even a number 9. Like Ronaldo for me is a number 9 for 10, 12 years.
Yeah, it's a nice comparison.
It's nice, isn't it? Nice comparison.
But no, I like to play in the pocket. I can play as a 9 and drop deep and spin off into the space. But I like to get the ball in those areas and either play the ball through for the winger or for the striker, or drive at the players to commit. So they weren't all they're not like all some worldies.
Yeah. Do you have a favourite moment? Favourite career moment? Because as I said, 20 trophies alone with Arsenal.
I think one of my favourite goals was against Russia in the Euros in 2009 in Finland, and the goalkeeper had the ball and she kicked it out of her hands, and I was just at the top of the centre circle, and the ball didn't even bounce, and I just picked it up once, just volleyed it up, and then just whacked it back over her head. I think that was because it was so instinctive and I knew I had the power in my legs just to volley it back over. I think that was a special goal that always stays with me.
Stays in mind, And do you put a lot of your success down to the fact that you did have experiences in both? I imagine the fact you had experiences in both America and in England from such a young age helped you develop your game so much, because I imagine not many people had that at that time. Yeah,
I learned so much when I was out in the States in terms of mentality and winning and running until you're sick. You know, these players that I trained with day in, day out, these US national team players, it's inbred in them to win. And I think that, when I was over there, really hit home with me, and I brought that back into the England fold and kind of led those teachings into the England team, and hopefully my teammates followed with that mentality. Because technically at the time, the England players were very, very good, but we were just missing something. We were missing that little key fitness element and the mentality to win when it mattered.
Similar to like the men's team, like obviously Phil took over and he had his spell, and he did good. He got to deep into it. What's going to take us to that next level to become world champions? What do we need?
A little bit of luck.
You need a bit of luck. We both need a bit of luck, but we seem to be creeping closer, men's and women's, into doing it. And hopefully we're going into a golden age.
And you've got the Women's Euros next summer as well, which is massive.
Yeah, it's
Absolutely massive tournament.
Especially as the men did so well this year, and you see everybody.
Yeah, we're still not over that. You and I are still not over that penalty shootout.
Everyone's back in love with the England team now, aren't they? Yeah. After so many years of not performing so well, so now they've done well. Hopefully the women now can step up. It's a home Euros, so the home support's going to be there. It's a little bit more added pressure, but I think the girls are going to love that.
I reckon it's going to be amazing. I reckon the fans will turn out. I reckon full houses everywhere. The girls can get on that one, like I said, keep that momentum going, have a great tournament, maybe, dare we say, even win it. Imagine that then the men going into, that's what I'm saying. Success breeds success, it's coming together.
I think the manager's going to help too. There's a new manager coming in, Serena Weigman, who was with the Dutch team, and she's got experience of winning the Euros with that team. So she's done it as a manager.
That's huge.
So when you bring that into the England fold, and that mentality, I think that's the key part to it. But I think technically the players that England have now, attacking wise, Lauren Hemp, Frank Kirby, these players get you off your seat. And Lauren James, who Chelsea have decided, these are three absolutely technically gifted players that can break down any defence. I think defensively we have to be a little bit more solid in terms of bringing the ball out. There's too many mistakes at the back at times. But I think the new manager coming in knows that and will fine-tune those little details.
Exciting tournament, isn't it? And that you read some of the pre-ticket sales already. It's set to be, I think, record-breaking numbers at
and
Wembley.
The games are at, I think, Wembley, Old Trafford.
Wembley, Old Trafford. It's all around.
Big stadiums.
These huge stadiums, loads of tickets sold. It should be fantastic. Can't wait for that. I wanted to talk to you about, because you've been very open in a lot of interviews that I've seen, Kelly, about some of the, we've mentioned the highlights you had in your career, the trophies you've won, the goals you've scored, an amazing career. You also had some sort of down moments, should we say, with injuries and other things that came from that. So I don't know if you're happy to talk about that, but how difficult those moments were and how you overcame those moments.
Yeah, no, it's been well documented. I was out in the States and my first professional season was running down the wing and just turned to kick the ball and I heard this pop in my knee and went to the hospital in pain and ACL.
Did you know straight away when you had the pop it was a serious one?
I was talking myself out of it when I was on the oxygen, thinking it's you know, it can't happen. But I knew, because just from the sensation and that noise. So it was a long process to recover from that. It was 6 months out, and all my injuries that I've had, you know, I had 2 knee surgeries, 2 broken legs, 3 ankle ligaments ripped off my ankle bone. So, but my first injury, I couldn't cope with it. As I said before, I was out in the States, no family, no real close friends nearby, and I just didn't know how to cope. I expressed myself through football, and it was taken away from me. I lost my identity, and I just used alcohol to lift me up, to make me feel better, and just got spiraled a little bit out of control. I was still in the rehab room doing my stuff, but I'd come home and I'd drink by myself just to forget about it, and then wake up the next morning and do the same thing again. It was just a long process. And then my first game back, after coming back from that, the second season, I went up for a header, come down on the same knee, I got clouted and I heard a crack. So I was out again for another 9 months. So these injuries aren't like little muscle pulls or strains that are out for weeks.
That was your first game back, as you said.
First game back against the New York team. And the same mentality and same process happened. I just couldn't deal with it. I hated seeing my teammates going out and train, and I was one-on-one in the treatment room with the physio, and it killed me. I was so isolated, so alone, didn't know who I was anymore, because football was who I was, and I didn't have it. So the cycle happened again, started drinking.
Was it the same cycle? I was just about to ask that.
Yeah.
The drink continued with the second injury. And
same.
How did you get back to fitness then? If you had the injury and you were drinking, it seems like almost a recipe for disaster, that.
Yeah, no, I mean, once I was back on the pitch, during the rehab from when I wasn't playing, once I started running and playing again, you know, my drinking subsided a little bit. So I was able to train at a full level. But my dad knew that something was wrong when I broke my leg the third season from a tackle from behind, that he knew that I was very distant.
Was it your dad who like, forget the injury, but the mindset, the mentality, who pulled you out of that?
My dad, well, he knew something was wrong with my mentality and how I was as a person. I was very withdrawn. And he said, right, I'm coming out. I'm on the next flight out and you're coming home. So
how important is that support network? Because it must be so difficult. I can't relate to, you know, fulfilling your dream and playing in such a huge moment, getting injured, and then getting injured again in your first game back, and being on your own as well. So how important is that support network? 'Cause I imagine there's so many players, men and women, that go through this.
I didn't have a support network out there. All my support was back home, and it was so difficult for me to verbalise and reach out that I needed help, because that's the weak thing to do. That's in my mind, but actually it's a strong thing to do, to say I need help. So I was just in this vicious cycle.
It's interesting you said, like, it's about like your identity, because I think football, I suffered injuries middle to the back end of my career, and it's like, you know, you don't think about it, and your identity is as a footballer, like you, and there's no one there to really explain that to you. Like, you have to I had to figure it out for myself. Look, you're Joe and you play football, and I was playing for Chelsea in England, but you're more than that. You know, you're a husband. I wasn't a father at the time. You're a father. You're a friend. You know, you like this other stuff. And so much of the problem, I think, with young people coming through, there's so much intensity in them to make it. So when they get an injury, it's so difficult to cope, because they just see themselves as a footballer. And when that gets taken away, it's hard to cope with. You have to come through it to look back and go, like Kelly's knows now, like that's why, because she couldn't express herself on the pitch. That's why went down the wrong road. But it's great that we come to a period now where we can talk about things on any platform, on any platform, and young kids listening, or adults, they can okay, right, so, and they can navigate themselves out of it a bit quicker. So it's good that we're in that place.
And also, how much respect do you have for Kelly for going through what she's been through and coming out of it and having an unbelievable career?
Yeah, well,
not just respect for her, but actually as a role model for other young women and men that might be going through something similar. They hear your story, and it's one that will inspire them, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it will inspire. And coming back from injuries, I had done my knee, my ACL, and I was never the same player. I was never the same player. I did it at 29. And I'd had lots of mileage on the legs, so maybe, but I was never the same player.
Why do you think that was?
Well, I was ACL, PCL, MCL, any other CLs that are in there. Right?
You blew it all out.
Just basically did everything, and I think I started at 17. I did my knee at 29, and what was me was I wasn't smart enough to adjust my game. afterwards. In my mind, I wanted to be the same player, but I could never twist and turn as much as it was just never the same, no matter how much strength I'd done with it. But I should have adjusted my game, and I didn't. And then the muscle injuries started coming round it. So it was not big injuries after that. It was like I'd play, get in the team, play 3 or 4 games, start feeling good, maybe score a goal or something, and then bang, I'd pull a muscle out for 6 weeks. And then
so you lose
the nature of the beast, you lose your rhythm,
Yeah.
you lose your rhythm. And the Premier League was, and plus I was getting old, I was turned 30 during my knee injury. So I was slowing down as well. And I just didn't, I think a good manager might have helped me, because when I went to France, the best season I had after my knee injury was when I went to France with Lille, with Rudy Garcia, who's now Lyon manager, and he recognised that we had the help that we had Hazard and Payet in the team as well.
Yeah, good team that, wasn't it?
So he planned. He said, "We'll play this game, this game, this game. We're going to play here. You don't train this day," because I had a bit of swelling, and he sort of managed me. And I played 30, 40 games that season, and probably the best I played after my knee injury. And but when I come back, managers couldn't accept that I couldn't train every day, and so they wouldn't put me in the team. And then I'd have to fight back into the team by training every day, get into the
Hurting
team,
yourself even
and then
more.
you delayed.
play, and then I remember at Liverpool with Brendan, I'd try so hard to get back in the team. I'd come off the bench, scored a goal. This was on a Thursday night. I come off with a tight hamstring in the game, 75 minutes. So I played well. I got a chance to play on Sunday, 3 days later, but it wasn't right. I knew it was gonna tear.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's gonna. I know it. I couldn't train. And then the manager would like cop the ump with you, and you give you that vibe that he's not happy with you. You're not tough to play. I'm like, I know
But
my body.
you know your body.
you know you've got better than anyone.
And then played, pulled a muscle, and then don't speak to you for 3-4 weeks, and then it's a cycle. So I think we're better equipped now to understand when players are in that part of their career, how to manage them. And no one owes you nothing in football, so the manager's job is to get results.
Yeah.
So, I don't hold a grudge against any of the managers at the back end of my career that didn't help, because I'm paid by the club, and it is what it is. They've got to win the game on Saturday, and it's not about whether we manage Joe Cole through his injuries well. I'm an asset. And again at West Ham, similar things happened. We went back to West Ham, played some good games, but then would break down, play some good games, break down. And I remember it got to the point where I was like, right, they'd actually tried to manage me, right? So it was like, okay, it was okay. Played on Boxing Day on the 26th, right? And they was like, right, usually Sam would say, you don't play now for the next one, but because we needed to play on the 28th. So I was like, all right, so you want me to play on the 26th and the 28th now because that's what suits you? And I'm like, well, they do, because you're paid to it, and that's what you got to do. So I played on the 26th and the 28th. I don't think I walked properly until the 31st.
He remembers it vividly.
And I'm 32 at the time, and I haven't played more than 2 games in a week for a long, long time. So we're in a better place, I feel, to help the situation, like Kelly's mentality, how she felt as a young player coming through. We set up better to look after footballers now, physically and mentally, which is good.
Yeah, I think that
which is a good thing.
That can only be a positive.
It is.
It's fascinating hearing your story, Kelly. There's so much we can talk about. But we've got to get your thoughts on the Premier League as well, because one of your former clubs, I think it's only right we start with Arsenal, Joe, because we spoke about a lot of other clubs. And we haven't spoken about Arsenal in great detail yet. That's exactly why.
Yes, we do, Kel.
Man City against Arsenal, early kickoff. Do you fear for your old club for this one?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
After the start that we've had, obviously losing against Brentford was not the start that we wanted and not ideal. And obviously the performance against Chelsea was just woeful. It was like men against boys, and Lukaku just bullied our 2 centre halves. And I fear for us going into the game at this weekend. I really do.
Yeah. Well, sorry to repeat. You wouldn't be a sane Arsenal fan if you didn't fear for your team. I watched both games, the Chelsea game and the Brentford game. Kelly's right; they was just off it. And the sad thing is for Arsenal and Arsenal fans was it looked like mentality and mindset over ability.
Do you think there's
a little bit
issue with the mentality at Arsenal?
I always, when I talk about Arsenal, I want to separate Tierney, Saka and Smith Rowe from the criticism you give to the group, because them 3 players I think are like a shining light.
Yeah.
I think the mental, like you look at all the incidents, you can go back like and the incidents of Arsenal players. You know when Xhaka was shouting at the fans and things like this, and the way that they folded in games. But the Brentford game for me was even more glaring than the Chelsea game, because you've got the start of the season. You go at Brentford, that is going to be a cauldron.
Yeah, under the lights, first game in the Premier League for Brentford. Right. You know there's going to be an absolute.
So them players have to be prepared mentally for that. You got Ivan Toney, you got all the footage. You know what he's going to do. He's going to back into you. He's going to, all that. And they just looked like
they weren't up for the fight.
They weren't up for it. Yeah. And that's hard. I would have hated that as a player. Someone wanted to criticise me. I can't do this. I can't do that. But to say that. Yeah. That would be the biggest criticism you could say. And this is one thing that I'm going to say. But the young lad that they put up for the media after that game, that, how it works. Like, you get told nowadays by the press officer, through the manager, go and do the media. Yeah. That needed to be the captain or the manager on that as devastating a performance and a result as that was for Arsenal. But to put a young lad up like that kind of decisions making, for me, sums up where Arsenal at the moment. And Arsenal are a great club, great, like so classy. And it's sad to see where they are from where they've been. And it's the
heartbreaking, isn't it?
Yeah, I've seen a few legends as well, sort of Bakary Sagna, Emmanuel Petit, talking in quite strong terms about Arsenal. Yeah. Worth pointing out, they did have a few players out. They've had a COVID outbreak, of course. New players coming into the squad. They have spent money. But do you think the problems are as big as Joe makes them out to be? Do you think there is a real issue with the mentality or as you described it, the mindset amongst Arsenal players?
I'd have to agree with that, because they have talented players. They're quite young. It's a young squad. They're trying to rebuild through the youth aspect. I don't see any real leaders on the pitch when they play. No one having a go at anyone or pulling each other in when it gets tough. There's no one really taking the game by the scruff of the neck like Tony Adams would back in the day. And I'm going back ages ago, but you just don't see that leadership throughout the whole squad. And that's a worry for me.
How does it change? What do they need to do to turn it around?
Well, first of all, I think you need to. I would get players back into the club, good characters like Martin Keown, who works for us at BT Sport. I think he feels the club. And your Sol Campbells of this world. These people, dare I even say, Ashley Coles of this. Because I know he's more social, but like players who've understood and players that the players on the pitch respect. Because they've all got, and get them and just go, right, we're going to be hard to beat. Arsenal need to be hard to beat. We used to go there with Chelsea at times, and the conversations were, and this is when they had better players than they got now. We know what they're all about. They've got lovely footballers going to pass it. If we keep our shape, stay tight, they'll always give you a chance. And you always fancy Didier Drogba. I don't know what his record was like. It must be about 20 and 5 against them.
And decent in cup finals, Drogba, wasn't it, as well? Always turned up.
And you'd know, and that there would always be, there'd be a little bit of, something would go wrong, and you'd hear them bickering amongst themselves, arguing with a ref.
Did you? You felt that as players?
Yeah.
You see that?
Bickering amongst themselves, arguing with a ref. If you kicked one of them, they'd be on the floor and they'd be moaning and...
Then you sense something as a player that you can kind of take over the game, because they're losing their mindset a little bit.
Yeah, and the crowd was... Listen, it was never... The new Emirates was never going to be hybrid, but it would get even more quiet and a bit more moany. And then all these things come into the play, and then you go a goal up, they'd open up even more, rather than someone, like you said, Kelly said, a senior playing, and right, stay in the game for 5 minutes. Let's be solid. Let's stay in the game, and then last 10 minutes we might nick a draw out of the game. No, they start overlapping, going forward, because it's the philosophy, and then you'd pick holes in them, and then score the second, and I've seen it happen. Not just Chelsea. I've seen Man United used to do it to them, and that's why they, even with the great players, and they were great players at that time. Fabregas, Rosicky,
Van Persie, that era, wasn't it? Yeah.
Great players. But there wasn't enough round them who could, like Man United had Rio Ferdinand Vidic, we had Terry Carvalho and it's solid. So they would always give you a chance.
What is a good season, Kelly, for Arsenal this season? Realistically, what would represent success for Arsenal, or a positive season, should we say?
I want to say top 6, but I can't see it happening.
You can't see top 6 at all?
No, not at all.
No.
Yeah, that's been the goal, isn't it? Top 4 to try and get into Europe, but I really don't see it happening this year, just with what I've seen so far. I mean, hopefully they can change the season around. It's still early. I mean, it's only 2 games in, but everyone's on Arteta's case right now. Arteta out, aren't they, because of the poor start, but there's still a lot of games to play. But
what do you think about this? So Arteta who's come in, you know, obviously you've got Edu in the front line, and I think Arteta's held himself well during this difficult time. I think he looks like he's got a good coach. He's got an ideas of how to play. But what about Edu and the people above him? You know, that where I feel in that situation, if I was responsible for bringing the players into the group, I'd want to be. If I was Edu, I'd be like, I'd want to sit with the manager.
You're talking about the recruitment side.
The recruitment side, but no, it's like they're up there in the director's box doing their thing, and you know, it's Arteta's getting pelters. You know, he has to shoulder some of the blame, but not all of it. And then you've got a whole recruitment team and the financial people who run it. They seem to be so distant from him. Like he needs to be next to him, like helping him basically. Arteta needs help. He needs a senior player around him, or someone backing him. I think he's got his staff around him, Arteta. They look like good coaches, but maybe they need someone there with a bit more presence, I think, in that connection between the recruitment and the manager. Because it's just a mess. Was it 14,000 tickets they couldn't sell or something? I want to throw the numbers in, but Arsenal fans usually go there in their droves. And the first game back after lockdown, full house, and they had to send tickets back. That shows you where they're at.
Kelly, we asked you about Arsenal, what represents a good season. So it's slight prediction there. You said you couldn't see them top 6, but I'm going to get you to give us your predictions for Premier League winners, because we've done this on the first pod with Shawnee Wright and Joe. You tipped Chelsea, didn't you? Yeah. Looking very good. Who would you tip to lift that Premier League trophy?
I think I'd have to side with Joe, just with the signing of Lukaku.
What's the signing?
He just makes them different up top. His power, his strength, his speed. Yeah. He's such a better player now, having gone away and worked on his game. And I think that is such a key signing for Chelsea. I just think, you know, if they can continue the momentum, and the confidence grows, I can't see them not losing the champions.
Kel, what do you think? Because how many days to the transfer window ends? 3 days?
6 days?
Do you think that changes if Harry Kane or Ronaldo turn up at Man City?
I can't see him going.
Can't see either going.
I can't see Harry Kane leaving after this whole saga of the past month or so.
It's getting a bit late now, isn't it?
It's squeaky bum time. But I think, I just can't see it. He obviously his back training was in the squad, wasn't he? Come on. I just think it's too late in the day.
Do you see Man City and Chelsea being, or Man City's challenging Chelsea the most though?
I think so. Liverpool are close up there, but they haven't really added to their squad, have they, that much, Liverpool, in terms of signings? So I think
they're going to lose Salah and Mane.
That's it. 2 of their best players.
And Keita,
For the Nations Cup.
Should be quite an exciting one though, I think, this year. I think Man City, Chelsea, obviously United have improved, Liverpool have got Van Dijk. I think it'll be an exciting year. Got you some odds for you. Man United, who we didn't mention, neither of you mentioned in your discussion. I think they've a brilliant start. They look good. 9-1 to win the Premier League, Joe. And if you think Arsenal... Now, I've got this. If you think Arsenal will be relegated, I don't know if that I'm just being made to read that out.
Nasty. You just been nasty.
I didn't write this. I'm just reading it out. But if you do think Arsenal will be relegated from the Premier League, Coral will give you odds of 18-1.
18?
Yeah.
That's skinny, man. Listen, as much as Arsenal are in disarray at the moment, and, you know, I get a lot of stick. Obviously, Chelsea, because of Chelsea, West Ham connections and London clubs.
You get a bit of stick from Arsenal, do you?
Okay, yeah, of course. Like they think I put it on them a little bit, but I don't. I know lots and lots of Arsenal fans, and I'm just saying what I see from as an ex-player of what's going on to the club, but they won't get relegated. I mean, 18 to Coral, come on, you can do better than that.
Kelly, thoughts on that?
I can't see it happening. I'd think a top half finish for Arsenal this year, but I don't. No, they have too many good technically gifted players, quality players to allow that to happen.
Yeah, I would agree with you both. Cannot see Arsenal getting relegated. But 18-1 are the odds if you do fancy that. Liverpool v Chelsea. Got to talk about the late kickoff on Saturday. Two of your former clubs, Joe. This should be a tasty one, this, shouldn't it?
Be a good game.
Two good sides.
Good game. I don't think, whatever the result, I don't think it will define the season for I could see it being a draw. I don't think it will define it because they'll both be there or thereabouts. I watched Liverpool live against Burnley. They was excellent. Having Van Dijk back alongside Matip, they was very, very,
it's like a new
very
sign,
good.
that Van Dijk.
I tell you,
there's so much football and the presence that I always feel watching Van Dijk. It's not just his ability, but it's how he lifts the rest of the team. He's a monster player, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a monster player, and I don't know if you see it, Kel, but I think Jurgen Klopp give the Barnes and Wood a little bit of stick for trying to sort of ruffle him a little bit, and it just. First of all, they did what you'd expect from them, and they were trying to back into him, probably stamping on his foot.
Yeah,
good old fashions, and he was just like a Rolls Royce. Yeah, it was fantastic.
It's a good way to describe him.
He was.
Yeah, I mean, the aura that he has about him, when just the way he holds himself and conducts himself on the pitch. I think he's a leader, isn't he?
Yeah.
And other players look at that.
Do you know what, Kel? I'd like to do if I could have a time machine, I'd like to take Van Dijk back though and put him against a prime Costa or a prime Drogba. Because
would you?
I'm going to be so
a physical player talking about see how he copes
and have the ability, like the because of the framework of the game, the referee let things go.
Yeah.
Where they could, because he's so bigger, stronger,
you'd like to see
and
him come out on top in that.
Yeah, no, he's so bigger, stronger, and smoother than anyone else. If you haven't got the ability to be a bit nasty with him, I don't think any striker in the league can touch him. The only person I think could give him huge trouble is in Europe. Two players is Haaland and Mbappe now, and that would just be because of pure pace.
What about Lukaku?
That would be interesting. But the thing is, Lukaku can't play like Drogba. Do you know what I mean? Drogba was. He knew how to the dark arts. He knew when to hold a shirt. He knew when to back onto someone. He enjoyed that side of it. If Lukaku does that, the size of him, he's going to get a yellow card. So it's very much. Football now has evolved into very much a standoffish thing. Jurgen Klopp was moaning about it. I was at the game. I didn't think there was anything wrong with any of the tackles, but he wasn't happy. But I think Lukaku, if allowed to get physical with him, that would be a hell of a battle. But
how do you see that battle going, Kelly? Van Dijk against Lukaku. It is a battle. There's so many battles all over the pitch, but it's one that a lot of fans have been talking about ahead of this one, isn't it?
It's mouthwatering, isn't it?
It is.
It is really, I can't wait to see how it evolves. But, he's so good with his back to goal and so strong, bringing others into play. But it's just how Van Dijk deals with that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Right, Kelly, we're going to put you on the spot a bit here. We've got Coral's Football Super Series game. So I'm going to ask you 4 simple questions about the Liverpool-Chelsea game. They say simple questions, but they're tough answers to get, aren't they? First goal scorer. So who are you going for the first goal scorer? I think this is a tough one, Joe, in this game.
I think with the Liverpool crowd there, I think it's their second time that they've... The crowd at Anfield would have been there since they won the full crowd since they won the Premier League. Yeah. I think it'd be rocking. And that's always an extra player for Liverpool. I think Mo Salah has a great goal scoring record. It's against his former club. I think I'll go for him.
Okay, Mo Salah, who are you going with, Joe?
I'll definitely go with a Chelsea player.
Yeah. Is that because you'll get penalties if you don't?
Yeah, cool. No. I can see what Kelly's going with there because, it will be a cauldron, especially Chelsea coming to town.
I know it's not a derby, but I remember your era. Yeah, Liverpool and Chelsea seem to play each other in so many cup games and the league, and there is a rivalry there, isn't it? What those games like rivalry.
They was again, it was like cauldron.
Was it?
All them games, I think Liverpool, Chelsea, London club. I think the cultures of both clubs are perceived to be so different. So it's a culture clash. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Big Rom.
Yeah,
carrying his run going. Yeah, and I'm mass mouth for him against Van Dijk.
Yeah, 2 good shouts there, Lukaku and Salah. Next up, this is a bit of a trickier one. Time of first away team goal. So the away team is Chelsea.
The time.
Yeah.
God.
Chelsea's first goal.
I do think they will score.
Okay.
23 minutes.
24 nights. So you think Salah gets the first?
Yep.
So it's an exciting game. 23 minutes.
End to end.
Rock and roll football.
Yep.
Yeah.
23 minutes for Chelsea. Can you see that? Well, you're going Rom first goal scorer.
I'm going Rom first goal scorer, but I think it'll be in the second half. Like maybe sort of, I'm going to go 60. I don't think a tight game.
So you're thinking a cagier
I'm a
start,
cagey
but they're
affair.
feeling each other out at the start.
Yeah, cagey affair.
Okay, cagey
Early on in the
affair.
season.
How many yellow cards? We know people like to have a flutter on yellow cards.
Yeah, I think it's going to be quite a physical, feisty game because we were just talking about the rivalry. I'd say 4.
4 yellow cards.
I think it's quite high.
What are you saying, Joe?
I'll go under, so I'll go 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
3 yellow cards. And finally, how many corners?
Oh, let's just throw this out there.
Also, we're going to be watching this game with these predictions. So if any
Yeah.
of them come in, we'll mention it on the pod next week, of course.
I'd say 7.
7 corners.
More.
Yeah,
I'll
straight
go
in.
11.
11 corners. Okay, there we go. They are the predictions from Kelly and
Based
from
on
Joe.
what? No, I'm just having
Whether you want
having
to
a punt.
use that as inspiration, it is up to you at home. If you can play along at home, head to coral.co.uk. Answer questions correctly, you will win cash prizes, but do gamble responsibly. Joe, listen to this. Chelsea to beat Liverpool 2-1 and Lukaku to score first, 22-1 with Coral. What are your thoughts?
Tasty.
Yeah?
Tasty. You can see the big man scoring first, and it will be KG up. So yeah, that's a good bet. That.
You like that? Kelly,
like it.
love to have you on the pod. I think it's only right to sort of end it by talking about the women's game now. And you describe yourself, many people describing Kelly as a trailblazer for women's football. So how proud of you with how far the women's game has come, because you've got all the broadcasting rights for WSL, we've got the women's Euros in the summer. It's a very exciting time for women's football at the minute.
Yeah, it really is. I'm buzzing. Just feel very proud to have played a small part in where the games come now. It's evolved full circle. As we said before, I was having to pay to play. And when I finished my career, I was a full-time professional with Arsenal, playing in the league. So the visibility now is key, seeing the games on TV, on mainstream TV, and for young boys and girls to accept that women do play football, it's the norm. And I think a lot of people's perceptions have changed over the past few years with how good women's football is. And it's going to get better with the right sponsorship, the money that's involved in the game now. And like you said, the England team, I feel like are so close to winning a Euros or a World Cup. And I think if they could do that, the game again would.
I think that would go on to another level even more.
I absolutely think that will happen, yeah.
And same question to you, Joe. I mean, it's great. Obviously, you've been involved in the men's game for so long, but it's great to see women's football getting the attention that it deserves. And it's an exciting time, isn't it?
Yeah, Kelly's been very humble, saying a small part. She played a huge part in that. It's great. Like I said, my little girl's 11, and she goes training football, and it's busy. You know, there's loads of girls doing it, and that is fantastic. And when I was over and playing in the States, it's getting more like that over here. Like it's normal for the girls to be playing the sports, and all kids need to be doing sports, especially nowadays with all of the. All the distractions on the phone and all these things that,
And all the health benefits it brings as well.
Yeah, the health benefits, the life skills, social
Teamwork.
aspect, teamwork is so important. And for any parents listening out there and they've got young girls, young boys, they get into an age where they get them into team sports, get them in football.
It's for young girls having that opportunity to play.
Yeah.
I didn't have an opportunity to play with girls. I was in boys' teams. So now there's so many young girls' teams out there, and they can look up and say, I want to be a professional footballer, because they can see it now.
Yeah.
The league is professional.
Yeah.
I think that's the perfect note to end it on.
Yeah,
Kelly Smith,
perfect.
MBE, legend of the game. Thank you so much for joining
Thanks,
us.
had a blast.
Great to have you on. You know where to find us, Joe YouTube channel, or wherever you get your podcast from. That, of course, was All to Play For with myself and Joe Cole, brought to you by Joe and Coral. Brilliant. Well done, Mark. Cheers, Kelly.
Good. Thanks, guys.